Characters in horror movies are little more than cattle to the slaughter, but that doesn't excuse the many harebrained decisions they've made over the years. From tripping over while running away, to investigating creepy sounds in dark places. Occasionally, terrible decision-making can be overlooked. When a masked killer is hot on your heels or a ghost has materialized, the stress alone is probably enough to addle your mind. But characters who get what they deserve are a staple of the genre. I'm Rue from What Culture, and this is 10 of the dumbest decisions ever made in horror movies. In at number 10, Wolf Creek, giving the psycho killer his rifle back. The worst thing about the Australian outback isn't getting lost in its vast, unforgiving expanse, it's running into the sadistic psychopath known as Mick Taylor. The Aussie serial killer racked up a sizable body count in Wolf Creek, its sequel, and its recent TV spin-off series. But his reign of terror could have been stopped early on if it wasn't for the stupidity of one of his victims. In the original movie, the character Liz is captured by Mick, only to escape fairly quickly. The psycho killer ends up in hot pursuit. The pair clash, and Liz shoots him in the neck with his own sniper rifle. This is impressive stuff, but what she does next defies logic. Instead of triple-checking that the gunshot actually killed Mick, and putting an extra bullet between his eyes for good measure, she discards the firearm right next to his apparent corpse and leaves. Of course, Mick isn't dead, and the rest of the movie is him basically taking Liz out, and her friend Christy, with that very rifle. On to number 9, Halloween Resurrection, trying to unmask an unrestrained Michael Myers. Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie Strode was a cut above the dumb teens who fell victim to Michael Myers in the first 2 Halloween movies, but by the 8th installment her peers' stupidity seemed to have rubbed off on her. The opening act of Halloween Resurrection sees the Shatner mask-wearing killer stalking his sister at a mental hospital, but this time she's ready. Luring her stalker to the roof, Laurie snares him in a trap and has the chance to put an end to him for good. Michael is suspended from the edge of a building by his ankle. Only a length of rope prevents gravity from doing its thing, but just as Laurie's about to cut, she has a flashback to a really dumb incident from the previous film, in which she killed a paramedic in Myers' mask after mistaking him for the real deal. So she has to be sure it's him this time, which is fair enough. But she seemingly forgets that Michael's arms aren't restrained while she slowly reaches for his mask and attempts to remove it. Of course, her brother retaliates and turns the tables. How exactly did she think that was going to play out? In at 8, Saw 2. Both hands in the razor box. Saw 2 illustrated the old look before you leap adage in gruesome fashion with Jigsaw's razor box, the easiest trap in the series to escape from unscathed. In a moment of sheer panic, Addison Corday placed both hands inside the box containing wrist-slashing blades and died a slow and painful death as a result. All Addison really had to do was take a deep breath and obtain all of the facts before deciding how to tackle the problem at hand. Ha ha! A quick glance at the other side of the box would have revealed a lock with a key already inside it. Okay, so Addison had inhaled her fair share of nerve gas by this point, but it should have been painfully obvious that haste and Jigsaw's traps do not mix well. 7 is Paranormal Activity, mocking the demonic spirit. There are some do's and don'ts that you have to abide by when an evil entity takes up residence in your home, and Paranormal Activity's Micah stupidly violated them all. Taunting and goading the evil entity is never a good idea, yet the camera-obsessed moron brought home a Ouija board to wind the demon up against his terrified girlfriend's wishes. Calling in a professional to seek their advice is high on the list of to-dos. But when Kate brings one into their home, Micah treats him with contempt and refuses to take the situation seriously, something that takes pride of place in the don'ts column. It's these actions alone that cause the situation to escalate and ultimately spiral out of control, with Micah being Paranormal Activity's sole fatality. And boy, did he deserve it. 6. Scream! Trying to escape through the doggy door. When Tatum Riley is confronted by Ghostface inside the garage, she has 2 options. Attempt to flee through a doggy door that's clearly too small to fit through, or fight him to the death. There are weapons everywhere in that garage, tools and glass bottles that she doesn't wield creatively, and patio furniture that's heavy enough to do her pursuer some serious damage if thrown particularly hard. But instead of taking the fight to her opponent, she chose to try and flee through the doggy door. a door that most dogs would struggle to fit through themselves, making her a sitting duck with a broken neck. Or making her a dog's dinner with a broken neck. 5 is The Fly, failing to assemble the rifle before the showdown. Towards the end of David Cronenberg's The Fly, a crazed and nearly fully mutated Seth Brundle snatches Veronica from the hospital and whisks her away to his lab. Her ex, Stathis Barans, sheds his sleazebag persona and turns hero at this point, following the man-insect hybrid and the woman who's carrying its child back to its lair in an attempt to save the day. Stathis doesn't have much time to plan his rescue operation, but even so, his decision to assemble his gun inside the lab was sheer madness. The weapon was in several parts when he took it to Brundlefly's abode, and still inside a carry case no less. While the magazine editor is still piecing the gun together, Brundlefly leaps out of the shadows and catches him off guard, before assaulting him with his corrosive and utterly disgusting acid vomit. This failure to take a fully assembled and fully loaded gun into the lab ended up costing him an arm and a leg, or a hand and a foot, to put it literally. 4. Jeepers Creepers, entering the pipe. After being attacked by the trucker from hell, and then witnessing him disposing of a dead body down a dark pipe, any rational human being's response would be to get as far away from said pipe as possible, and contacting the authorities at the first opportunity. For some inexplicable reason, Jeepers Creepers 2 leads decide the best course of action is to investigate the pipe themselves, and find out what's lurking down there. Darry is the worst of the pair, as he reckons it's a good idea to climb into the thing, as if every horror film from decades past didn't even happen. At least his sister, Trish, adds some metaphysical satire to the situation by warning her sibling that the audience are going to hate him for making this very stupid decision.
You know the part in scary movies where somebody does something really stupid and everybody hates them for it? This is it.
3 is The Omen, and praying before dealing with Damien. In the Omen remake, time is of the essence when Robert Thorne realizes it's down to him to vanquish the Antichrist, who turned out to be his son, Damien. With the law in hot pursuit, stalling was certain to be catastrophic. For a man who knows what's at stake if he fails, Liev Schreiber's US ambassador sure takes his sweet time in his attempt to vanquish evil, taking a moment to recite a prayer before dealing with his adoptive devil son. Stalling is what proves fatal for Robert and probably humanity during the unseen aftermath of this remake, since the police soon catch up with him and stop him with a bullet. In Omen lore, sticking one of the sacred daggers of Megiddo into Damien would have been enough to extinguish his physical form, so with more haste and less prayer, Robert would have been halfway to completing his job. 2. I Know What You Did Last Summer, stopping to look back. I Know What You Did Last Summer seriously trolled the fans with Helen's death. All Sarah Michelle Gellar's character had to do was keep on running, and she would have made it to safety. But no, in a move straight out of the horror movie cliché Bible, Helen stops and looks back to see whether the hook-handed fisherman had caught up, and this alone is what got her killed. A few steps further, and she would have left the dark alley behind and caught up with the parade march, finding safety in plain sight. But apparently nobody told her the golden rules of slasher film survival. Even the teens in Scary Movie had stronger survival instincts than this. And in the number 1 slot, of course, Fear.com, ignoring the killer website warnings. Fear.com is a forgettable Ringu knockoff about a website with fatal consequences for anyone who logs on, but the stupidity of its main characters will live long in our memories. When Stephen Dorff's detective Mike Riley gets to the bottom of the mystery, he promises his fellow investigator Terry Huston that he will never log on to the site himself. But 5 minutes later, guess which website he visits? When Mike is carried off on a stretcher, screaming at Terry and pleading with her never to make the same mistake as him, you would think this warning would be heeded. She's seen what the website can do firsthand. But nope. Terry also visits the lethal URL, and all hell breaks loose. Fear.com can almost justify having Mike log on to the site, since he's personified as obsessive where his investigations are concerned. But both of them, clearly this level of abject stupidity is more contagious than 28 Days Later's rage virus. Which horror movie decision did we miss? Leave a comment below with your suggestions, and in the meantime, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Don't have nightmares.